the homework questions first, and then we'll go on with the lesson. So for the sake of saving Wi-Fi, we will turn our camera off now. Okay, guys. So the first problem I want to go over from the homework is rock, paper, scissors. So before we start on rock, paper, scissors, I want to read the question with you guys once. Rock, paper, scissors is a game that involves two players in which each player chooses rock, paper, or scissor. In the case that both players choose the same option, it is a tie game. In other cases, rock beats scissors, paper beats rock, and scissors beat rock. You will be designing code that simulates the game of rock, paper, scissors between a player and a computer. Your program should receive an input. If the input is not rock, paper, or scissor, then the program should stop running. Sorry? If the input is valid, the computer should randomly select between the three options. To do this, you will use the random module, random.choiceList. Returns a random selected given. After the user and computer randomly selects an option, you will determine the outcome. You will either print you won, you lost, or tie game, depending on the outcome. Then you will print what the user and the computer choose in format. So, what I decided to do, though the question asks you to use random.choose_list, we did not learn how to use a list yet. So I elected to use something we're more familiar with, called an integer. So I'll show you how my code works. So first, I'm going to make a player input thing. Also remember, we have to import random because later on we will be importing random things. So I put import random. Then I move on to make a player. So the player will hold rock, paper, or scissor. So basically, that's why I put input. Then I ask the computer to randomly generate a number between 1 to 3. And P0 I will explain a little bit later. So what I have decided to do with this problem is the fact that the player that holds the word which we choose, rock, paper, or scissor, rock will equal 1, paper will equal 2, and scissor will equal 3. So since I put the computer as numbers as well, I decided to check. For player, if it is rock, make the player's number 1, else if it's paper, make the player's number 2, and else if the player is scissor, make the player number 3. The reason I did not use an else here instead of an elif is because if I did use an else, that would mean even if it's not rock, paper, or scissor, the player's number will be 3, which we do not want. So, if P equals 0, that means if P equals 0, print stop, right? Because we don't want it to continue. Else, if P is equal to what the computer generated, that means it's a tie game. So we write print tie game. If 1, which is rock, and we see here we have a little bit of error. I'm actually going to fix this live right now. So basically what I'm doing is I'm comparing the two variables, P being the player and the other one being the computer's generated thing. So if P equals 1, basically if P is rock and computer is equal to 2, which means computer is paper, that means I lost because paper beats rock. So you lost. However, if I'm rock and the computer is scissor, I won. So I write you won. And then I continue on making these conditions. P equals 1 and computer equals P equals 2 and computer equals 1. That means I won because paper beats rock. Then again, if player is 2 and computer is 3, meaning I'm paper and the computer is scissor, I lost. And if I'm scissor and the computer is rock, I lose. However, if I am rock and the computer is paper, no, if I'm scissor and the computer is paper, I win. So if we run this, it'll first ask me to input rock, paper, or scissor. let's first check if I don't input rock, paper, scissors. Or input my name. Then it prints out stop. So we know that part is right. Let's put in rock. I lost. That means the other thing had to be paper, right? So an additional part of the code asks, you chose blank and the computer chose blank. So we want to do that, right? Let's add that part. I decided to not do that part ahead of time because I wanted to show you a way of doing it using my method. So we know the player is already a string being, we got it as an input up here. However, we don't know what the computer is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another string variable. Let's call it C. C equals empty strings. However, let's say if computer equal 1, C equals rock. And then we're going to do the same thing, except if computer is equal 2, then we're going to make C equal scissor. Why is that? Because I made scissor to be equal to 2. And then else, the last one, we got to input, no, 2 is paper. Sorry. Computer will 3, and C will equal scissor. So this way, I'm technically converting between integer and string, not like in an informal way, because I assume in my head that rock is equal to 1, and I just switch between those two. And now what do we have to print? Print you chose space right there, player plus the computer chose C. And then, and if we run this, also, I'm sorry about this. You have to put semicolons, not brackets. I'm used to a different language called Java where we do put brackets, so I often make that mistake. Be careful of that. It seems like I put that somewhere else. Line 41. I see. Okay. Well, I lost. You chose rock. The computer chose paper. That's why I lost. So that was the first question in your homework. I'm gonna assume that you guys did that. I'm actually gonna zoom out right now so you guys can actually see the entire thing. Yes. A screenshot of this will be in Discord later on, so if you guys want to check that out, you can do so. So I'm gonna move on to the next question, which was use one while loop, which is every question on this. Yes.
Can you go back so I can screenshot it?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. You can take screenshot of the top. Tell me when you did. I'm assuming you got. I'm gonna get the bottom part too. Did you get it?
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Okay. Now we're gonna move on to the use one while loop. So we're gonna start with the first one. A user inputs a positive number, and hello Java will be printed as many times as inputted in the number. Example: input any positive number, 3. Then hello Java is printed 3 times. Yes, sorry. And so, what are we gonna do? So we first need to make a variable that holds the number of times we're gonna hold it, right? So we write num is equal to int, and we're gonna write input. I'm actually gonna erase this so I can show you the process. Input any positive number. However, we know that when I put in an input, I will instead get a string. Instead, what we want is a variable. So I cast this entire thing into an integer. So, and then I make this variable called I. Why did I do that? Because when we use this while loop, we need to count how many times it happens, or else we'll get an eternal loop. So, I say while I is less than num, because I will continuously add 1 within the while loop. It'll run at num amount of times, And each time it'll print hello Java. Example 3, hello, 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 hello. Let's say 10. We see here 10 times. However, let's say I take away this, right? Let's say I just take that away. Then what happens? It continues forever and ever and ever because I will never become num. Equal to num, which means the while loop never stops, which is going to be a runtime error exception. So we want to make sure we add that one. So that was the first problem in the we'll use one while loop. Did you get the screenshot? I'm assuming you did. And then next one. So the next question, a user inputs a positive number. The numbers of multiple of 3 will be printed out as many as inputted in the number. So basically, I put in any positive number, and that amount of multiples of 3 will be printed. So, same thing as before. Num, cast input, any variable, yada yada yada. But instead, if we look here, the difference between this and that is that I starts at 1. Why did I do it? So I'll explain. So we know that we want num, which means like 5, 3, the inputted amount of times 3, because if you see here, it says 5. So we get 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. That's the first 5 multiples of 3. So that's what we want, right? However, how are we going to do this? What I propose is that we use I, which is going to continuously increase by 1. We multiply that number by 3. So if I is less than or equal to num, because we want this to go up to num, we say print I times 3. Then you move on because you need to end the loop somehow. So let's say I put 5. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. 5 numbers. Once again, different number 3. 3, 6, 9. 3 numbers. So voila. And next question.
Maybe you want to show them like without using multiplication as well.
Without multiplication. Okay. Thank you. We can also do that by what we do. I mean, multiplication will be kind of necessary throughout this. However, what we can do is we can start I at 3. We can make I less than or equal to num times 3. Because that will have to happen no matter what. So we're going to print out I, but instead of adding 1, this time we're going to add 3. So if we run this, 3, 3, 6, 9. It does the same thing essentially, because I just goes up to num times 3, assuming this time it'll be 9. Because I starts at 3, we print 3, then we add 3 to I, which is going to be 6. Print I, because 6 is not equal to 9, and then we print 9. And then we go on again, because 12. And then we check if 12 is greater than, less than, or equal to num, and it is, so we stop there. Next one. A user keeps inputting any integer numbers until she inputs 0. If 0 is inputted, the addition of all inputted numbers will be printed out. So we see here, I didn't put the part where the result is -3 part. I did put the -3, I just didn't put the rest of the sentence, just for the sake of simplicity. We see here, I start with a num outside, and then I have an I inside. So I gotta check, as long as num, which is already established as a variable, is not equal to 0. Because the moment it is equal to 0, that's the moment the while loop has to end. So what do? We say I is equal to I plus num, because every time I get a new num, I had to add the I, because I will be the answer variable that I am striving to use. So after I add num to I check what the user wants for num. So if that num happens to be 0, the while loop will be over. However, if that value that I input is not 0, it'll once again add it and then check again if it's 0. Example, input any. I'll start with 9. It'll ask again 3. Ask again 1. So in total, that should be 13. So if I press 0, which means end the thing, I should get 13. So that's one way of doing it. Another way you can technically do it is using ifs. However, if you do use ifs, it will be much more, not much more complicated. It'll just be much more of a hassle in a sense, because what you're gonna have to do is this. You're just gonna say while true, because you want this to loop and again and again and again. You switch the order. You put that there, and then you basically what you do is you check if num is equal to 0. If it is, break. Break just means get out of this while loop. That's how you would you would do it with ifs. However, this is just much more of a hassle because it adds the possibility that the while loop will go on forever if you write something wrong. So just keeping this as such should make it simpler. And then last one, your last homework problem, which was the input, you put in as many inputs as possible, and then you print out the average. And in this one, you establish how many times you're going to actually run this thing, because it asks how many numbers will you input. So I asked that, how many numbers will you input? And then I established num as that number. So, and then I is that variable that keeps track of how many times I loop through this. And so while I is less than num, we say n is input any integer number, and I add that to answer because the answer is holding the sum. And then I do that until I get num amount of numbers, and then I print out answer. However, I do not just print out answer, I print out answer divided by num, because the average is basically the sum of all the numbers divided by how many numbers there are. And num is what is holding the value that says there are n num amount of answers. So I essentially print ants is like s ants divided by num. How many numbers will you input? I say 2. I input 4, and then I input 2. What this will give me, should give me, is 6. Or press it. Now it's 6, 3, my bad. It does give me 3.0. However, let's say I just want an integer instead of a decimal, as this is. I just make it into floor division. Same thing. Yeah, because it'll round down no matter what. However, this will be more accurate because if we look at such, we get the decimal included. So, is there any questions about the homework right now? If you do have any questions, please put it in the Q&A section. Um, oh, okay. I did go a bit quickly. Sorry about that. Does anyone have any questions? Sorry. No questions? If you have any, please just leave it in the Q&A section. As you can probably tell through my screen share, I am on that right now. I can see someone typing.
I can take care of the Q&A. You can just keep teaching.
Okay, no, because I'm done with explaining all the homework problems. That's why. No more questions. All right. Then I'm gonna hand it off to Tay, who will be progressing on with the lesson. So since no further questions, yeah.
I think you have to
I was told I was.
I think you have to teach for and while loops to them.
Do they not know for and while loops? Because I
I
was
don't
under
think we
the assumption that it was taught last week.
because if you look at the schedule, it says
No, you
teach.
have to go with. Uh, Give me a second, guys. We're having a bit of some conflict. Okay, guys. I'll pass it on to Tay later. Actually, I'll teach you guys about what a loop is first. So if you give me a second, please. I was not ready for this. Loops. I based on the fact that you had homework about while loops, I will be assuming that you do know how to use a while loop. However, I will still review it. So what is the while loop? The while loop is the assumption that you assign a variable outside and then you continue to do something over and over again while something is true. As you see here, this condition y. While I is less than 6, print I, and you continuously add 1. So you make sure you keep on going through while and the fact that there has to be an end. And the break statement is literally just like escaping this while loop despite like not finishing it. And continue just means skip over that certain one. And also remember, this is very important. This is very, very important. If you look here, we have that semicolon, right? That's important. However, even more important, this indentation. So what this indentation means is that it says while I is less than 6, right? Then do print I. However, let's say I didn't put that indentation. That would mean while some I is less than 6, nothing happens. Because without the indentation, the code doesn't know that the print is within the while loop, and it doesn't establish that level of command. Okay. So basically, while it literally means while this is true, do this so many times. And this indentation is very, very important. I cannot stress that enough. And break statement is just escaping that while. Uh, and then, so that's the essence of a while loop. It's basically an if statement that continues to over and over and over again. Okay, I'm going to move on to for loops, which is a bit more complicated. So, we haven't gone over lists yet, I think. So I'm not going to explain this part, which Tay is probably going to go over today, and I want him to go into a little bit more detail about lists before I tell you about this. Looping through a string. So what does this mean? It says 4x in banana, and banana happens to be a string. So what is x? X is going to be a string variable that is going to get each and every letter of banana. So in the first case, x will be b. After it prints x, it'll be a. After it prints a, it'll be n. After it prints n, it will be a again. After it prints a, it will be n again. And after that, a, and then it'll end. Why? Because banana does not have any more letters for x to be part of. So here. As you see here, B, A, N, A, N, A. Let's change the word. Well, it'll do the same thing. H, E, L, L, O. Give it a second. Yeah. However, one interesting fact. One thing you do have to know: the space will be counted like a letter, and so will the exclamation point. If we see here, it'll be HELLO space, hence this empty thing, WORLD exclamation point. So that's how you loop through a string. Break statement still applies. So does the continue statement, which means just skip this one. So what is the in range function? So what the in range function is basically if the string one was in range of the number of letters, this is the value of 6, for example, in this range. It'll be whatever number value, integer, that you put it into the range between the parentheses. Sorry? So, if we see here, we start at 0. X always starts at 0. When we count things in Python, everything starts from 0. And we see here, it doesn't print 6, despite this being 6. Why is that? If we look here, technically, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 5, I mean, those 6. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are 6 numbers. We do have 6 number. So basically, this is saying x start at 0, go up to 6, but do not include 6. So that's the in range function. What else you can do? If we see here, we have a 2 comma 6. What that means is that you start at number 2 instead of 0, and you go all the way up to 6, but not 6. And if we see here, we have 3 numbers all of a sudden. Why is that? So, the first number is the number we start on. So the second number is the one we go up to. And the third one is how many we go up by. If we see here, it goes 2, 5, 8, 11, 14. Why is that? Because every time we go up, instead of adding 1 like normally, we instead add 3. And then like ifs, we can have for loops within for loops. However, this will take up a lot of time and make your code very inefficient. And so basically that's the essentials for a while and for loops. Before I pass things on, I want to do some exercises. So, what I want you guys to do is in the chat, what will be in this space that I'm in the first space and the second space? Could you write it in the Q&A section? Yes. Mm, yeah, I'll move on. It has to be while and the apostrophe. If you show answer, yes, that is indeed correct. Next, what goes here? I want to stop the loop, right? And what did I say? If you want to escape a loop, you have to break out, right? So if we want to break out, we just have to type in break. I don't know why I press your answer. That's correct. Let's say, even if I have I is equal to 3, I want to skip over that. I want to just continue on. So if I want to continue on, just write continue. And voila. Now let's try some for loop exercise problems. This one, I'm just gonna skip because, like I said, we haven't learned about lists. Break. Let's skip this one. Oh, really? Okay, thanks. So, It says here, use the range function to loop through a code set 6 times. 6 times. We have to use the range function. So it basically means for x in range, and it says I have to go through it 6 times. So obviously it should be in range of 6. In range 6. And if we submit answer, yes, because it'll go through it 6 times. And this is just a simple break. So yeah, that's basically just for loops and while loops in a nutshell. These two don't seem that complicated, but the more you use Python, the more you will understand how precious and valuable they are, as well as the more complicated ones, because nested and such will be very complicated. It will be very much be a headache to you in the future. And one thing I want you guys to know about the while loops is that during these while loops, let's say I while true, right? If you see true here, that means there's no condition for the thing to end. So if I have no condition for it to end, if we see here, uh, I can't do that. Give me a second. You know. If you see here, I set I to 0 and I refuse to change it, right? I will henceforth always equal 0. If I do that, I will be printed over and over and over again. If you see here, this blue line, it's not stopping. That means the code is continuing on and on and on and on and on. That's what we call runtime error, if I'm pretty sure. And yeah, so you want to make sure your while loop does have an escape consequence. And let me see the questions. Please repeat. Okay, continue. Continue, it's kind of simple. It's not like, you don't need to think about it too hard. Like, continue just literally means, if this happens, kind of skip over it kind of thing. Continue means continue on. Skip this and continue on. So if we see here, while I is less than 6, I plus 1. If I is equal to 3, continue. That means if I is equal to 3, don't do anything behind it. Just go back to the top, basically. And then if check again, if not, print. That's basically continue in a nutshell. Yeah, that's very true. Break does completely stop the entire thing. And yeah. Thank you, Tay. Yes. Thank you. So do you guys have any other questions regarding while loops and for loops? Please don't be shy, guys. If you do have any questions, just ask. Thank you, Eric, for asking a question. Asking questions is just a part of learning, guys. So you don't have to worry, guys. You can ask away. Once again, if you guys have any questions, please just tell me. Okay. Well, I'm assuming you guys understood while loops and for loops. Like I said before, these two tools will be very important. It's like the if statements. So I want you guys to always remember these. And if you have no further questions, oh wait, there might be. Sorry, guys. Remember, guys, don't be afraid to ask questions. We always look for questions, anyways. Also, Kennedy, thank you for pointing that out. I did see that. I should have done that, but I was like, let's just give it. I just did use a different example, but yes, Kennedy, you are in fact correct. Also, okay. If you guys don't have any other questions about loops, I will pass it on to Tay, who will be going over. I don't. Hey, I'm not sure what you're going over. Yeah, June teacher wants me to do that live lecture thing, so I will be there. Also, let me just say, guys, if you do miss something, don't worry. If you look in the Discord, there's this thing called live lecture notes. Right there, we do have screenshots of everything, and you can just use that to your advantage. And if anything, please ask in the question and answers chat. We will be doing things. So now on to Tay.
Data types, basically. So in this example, we see that we have a list of strings, and the list of strings includes apple, banana, and cherry, right? And yeah, so that's how I introduced what a Python list was. I also told you that uh, a list, even though it stores several different data types, it's it itself is a data type. Okay, and it's a collection of data. And as Sean showed you a bit earlier, we for most of the time we use lists when we're trying to store information and when we're trying to loop through information. For example, using the for loop or the while loop. Okay, so this example shows us how to print a list. Okay, and it's pretty simple. We basically just do print, and then inside the parentheses, we put in the name of the list. Okay, so if we try it out, we run this code, we're gonna see that.
Hey, they can't hear you.
You hear me?
I can hear you. Harriel, can you hear me? Wait, Tay, say something.
Hello? Hello?
Hey, can you just keep on just saying things to make sure?
Hello? 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 You hear me? Hello? Okay. Um, yeah, ask them if like actually you guys able to hear what I said for all of this? Oh, hello? You hear me now? If you can hear me, can you guys type one in the chat? Hello? You guys can hear me? Can you guys type two in the chat? The number two? On. On.
Yeah.
Any suggestions for what music I should play?
I mean, any play something random. Okay, hey, can everyone hear me? Okay, they can hear me, Jay.
Okay.
Uh, if anything, should I?
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so they can hear me, but they can't hear you, Tay.
You hear this?
Did you turn something on?
Oh,
Did you turn something on?
yeah.
I can't hear it. Okay, you know what?
Can't
I'll
hear
just
it?
go on with the lecture today. Okay. Hey guys, if you check in the playground chat, there has been a suggestion posted of what to do. However, if that does not work within the next 4 to 5 minutes, I will just continue on with the lesson.
Did you hear this?
Yeah, I can see it. I just
But
can't hear
you
anything.
can hear my
I can
voice,
hear
right?
you. Yeah.
Want me? Should I like disconnect and then try rejoining?
Yeah, try. Tia, I think they can hear you now. Yeah.
and then the square bracket. And the square bracket can be found next to the P on your keyboard. So square bracket, and then you can put whatever you want in your list. Okay, so this is how you create a list. This example here is how to print a list. So here we created our own list, and now we want to print it. And the way we print it is by using the print function that we've used so far, and then we can
Okay.
yeah,
It's not working again.
okay.
Give it a second. Okay, go ahead. Apparently they can hear now.
Okay. Um, yeah, I'll just keep going then. So, yeah. So basically, if you want to print a list, then you just use the print function and then put in the name of the list in between the parentheses. Okay? And if you do run the code and you print the list, then you're going to see this, and you're just going to see the list in the console. Okay, yeah. Sean, you can just tell me if like they say they can't hear me. And next, we're going to talk about the way we list items. So items in lists have indexes, and basically they're similar to strings, which we went over a little while ago with Elliot. And they basically have an index. So the first item has an index of 0. The second item has an index of 1, and then it keeps going. Okay? So for example, let's look at this list. In this list, the string apple would have the index 0. The second string banana would have an index of 1. The third, which is cherry, would have an index of 2. Okay? And lists are unique in that they are ordered, and that means that their order will not change. Okay? So, and they tell us this right here, if you add new items to a list, so let's say you want to add more things to the list. Instead of just apple, banana, and cherry, we want to have 2 more things. In that case, when we add 2 things to a list, they're all going to go to the back of the list. And they're also unique in that they're changeable. And what that means is that we can pretty much change the list. So we can add items, as I said before. You can take away items from the list. You can alter the list in any way that you want. Another additional thing that lists can do is that they can store duplicates. In other words, they can have 2 items that are the same thing. So in this example, we see that this list has 2 duplicates. So we have 2 apples and we also have 2 cherries. But this is allowed in lists, so it's fine to have duplicates. Okay? So these are the 3 traits or qualities of lists that are unique to this collection of data. Okay? And lists are also similar to strings because they also use the len function. And len is just short for length. So if we wanted to find or print the length of a list or how many items the list has, we can do print parentheses len and then put the name of the list inside the len function, and then it's going to tell us how long the list is. So if we were to try it on our own here, we have a list, and of course it has 3 elements or 3 items. So of course when we run the code, we're going to see the number 3. But let's say we wanted to add several more items. So orange, kiwi, pineapple. Now that we have 6 elements in our list, this is going to print the number 6 in the console if we run the code. And there we see the number 6. And does anyone have any questions so far? Okay. And if you do have any questions, you can ask them in the question and answer. And there, if I'm not available, Sean will be able to answer your questions. So moving on from the length of a list, we're going to move on to the fact that we can store different data types. Earlier, we saw lists where we only put in strings inside, right? But the truth is we can actually store strings inside. We can also store integers inside. We can also store booleans inside. We can also store floats inside. We can also store different things, different types of data in the same list. So here we have a list called list 1, and in it we have a string, we have an integer, we have a boolean, and another integer, and another string. So as you can see in this example, we're allowed to store different types of data in the same list. So it doesn't always have to be strictly one data type. So that's what makes a list a pretty useful type of collection. Okay? So now we're going to talk about type. And earlier, I think we did talk about type, but if we were to put the name of our list in the type function, it's just going to return class list. And if you don't remember what the type function does, okay, let's say, of course, if we run this, we're going to get class list because my list here, this is a list, right? If we did, let's say my list index 0, if we run this, we're actually going to get class string. And the reason why is because if you remember, this number refers to the index of the item in the list. So if we look in the list here, the item with index 0 is always going to be the first item, which in this case is apple. And since apple is a string, we're going to see class string if we run the code. And there we see it. Okay? Does anyone have any questions so far? So next we have the list constructor. And basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. The list constructor basically creates a list for us. So earlier, we usually created a list by using the equal sign and then using the square bracket. So we surrounded our list with square brackets and it created the list for us. But another way we can do it is by using the list constructor. And what that does is it allows us to put in a list of data, except we can use round brackets this time. And what the list constructor is going to do is it's going to turn all of these items into a list. So basically, this and this, they do the same exact thing. Okay? So we've reached the end of the first section. I'm just going to come back here and ask if anyone has any questions so far. And if we don't, we're going to move on. Okay? I will continue with the second section. And the second section here is called Access List Items. Okay? So earlier, we talked about indexes and how items have a specific index number, similar to strings. So in this case, let's look at this example again, where the first element is apple, the second item is banana, and the third item is cherry. The string apple is going to have an index of 0, because similar to strings, we always start with the index 0. The second element is going to have an index of 1. And the third element is going to have an index of 2, and so on. Okay, so if we print this list and then index 1, we're going to print the string banana. So let's see that in action. If we run the code, we see that we get the string banana. Now, let's say we changed the index to 2. In that case, we would print the word or the string cherry, because now, instead of banana, we're talking about the item which has the index 2 in this list. And of course, if we change it to 0, we're going to see the string apple in the console. Okay, so that's how we access items, or that's a simple introduction to how we do it. Okay, and so far, we've been only talking about positive index numbers, right? So I talked about how this is 0, this is index 1, and this is index 2. And of course, it keeps going up by 1. So I only talked about positive numbers, but we can also have negative index numbers as well. And typically, this is where students might get a little confused. But if I were to explain it simply, negative indexing is going to go backwards. Okay? But this time, we're going to start from -1. So for example, let's say we have this list. Okay? The index -1 is going to refer to this item right here. And then it's going to be -2, and then -3. The reason why we don't start from 0, like we did from here, is because if we started from 0 here, and we also have 0 here, then it doesn't make sense, because then 2 items have the index 0. In order to prevent any confusion, we start from 0 if we're going from left to right, and we're only using positive index numbers. But we start from -1 if we're going from right to left, and we're using negative index numbers. Okay, so again, cherry has the index -1, banana has the index -2, apple has the index -3, and so on. And you might be wondering, why is this even a thing? Like, why do we even need negative index numbers when we can just use the positive index numbers? And the reason why we need why negative index numbers are useful is that, let's say we have like a really, really long list. So let's say we have a really long list where we don't, well, of course we can use the len function to find out how many elements there are, but sometimes we just want a quicker way to access the last element. In that case, we don't want to find the length of it and then try to access the last element of this list. But what would be faster is to use a negative index number and just use -1 to access the last item. Or let's say we wanted to use the second to last uh, item. In that case, instead of using instead of finding the length of the list and then calculating what positive index this item would have, we can just say -2 because it's the second to last item that we want. Okay, so that's why negative indexes are pretty useful. Okay, next we will be talking, or let me first check if anyone has any questions. Okay, I'm gonna keep going on. So moving on from negative indexes, we can also use the same concept of using indexes to now, instead of getting only one element, we can access several different elements at the same time. So by using a range of indexes, and this is also similar to slicing in strings. So like if we pretended this whole thing was a string and each item was a character, then this would be basically the same thing. So let's say we wanted these. We wanted banana, cherry, orange, and kiwi from this list. The way we would do that, or the way we would print these 4 items, is by doing this list and then square brackets and then 2 to 5. And you guys learned what slicing is in strings, and it works exactly the same thing, exactly the same way for lists. So for these two numbers are referring to, or I guess technically, the first number refers to the index that we want to start with. So if we were to start with the index number 2, then we would start with cherry, because apple has the index of 1, banana has an index of, sorry, apple has index 0, banana has index 1, and cherry has index 2. And the second number is 5, but this second number is kind of different because similar to slicing in strings, the last number is exclusive. And what that means is we're not going to include the element that has index 5. So we're going to go from cherry all the way to the one with index 5, which is melon, but we're going to exclude melon, because that's just how it works. So we're going to go from, we're going to include 2, the index 2, 3, and 4, and not 5. Even though we write 5 for the second number, we always exclude the last or the second number, okay? Okay. Oh, and a neat little trick that you can use is, let's say you wanted, again, this is similar to negative indexes. Let's say you wanted to go from the very beginning of the list all the way to some index. In that case, you can just leave out the first number, and when you run the code, it's gonna recognize that the first number is not there, and it's automatically going to start at the first element, and it's going to go up to kiwi, or sorry, orange, because we're excluding the last one. Okay? Similarly, we can exclude the second number, so we can leave it out, and the computer is going to automatically assume that we're going to start from the index 2, and then we're going to go all the way to the end of the list. Okay? So if we leave out the first number, we're going to automatically start from the very beginning. If we leave out the second number, we're going to go all the way into the end of the list. Okay? And this is, of course, useful because, again, let's say there's a really long list. We don't want to find the length of the list and then calculate what number we want to put here. We can just leave it blank, and it's going to go all the way to the end of the list. Okay? So, okay, never mind. Okay, so yeah, that is how the range of positive indexes work. We can also do the same thing for negative indexes. Okay, have a range of negative index numbers. And this works exactly the same way. Let's say we did -4 to -1. If you remember, we start from -1 and not 0 when we're using negative indexes. So we're going to start from -1, and then we're going to go to -2, -3, -4, right? So we're going to start from -4, which is orange, and then we're going to go all the way to -1, except we don't include the last one. So we're going to go from orange to kiwi to melon. Okay? So we're only going to get 3 strings: orange, kiwi, and melon. Okay? And moving on from ranges, or the range of indexes, we can check if an item exists in a list by using in. And this is, if we use the word is the in, then it returns a boolean. So let's say, and of course we can use booleans for if statements, which we learned last week Wednesday as well from Elliot. So let's say we want to know if the string apple is in our list. And of course, the string apple is in our list. So this is going to return true. Since the condition of our if statement is true, we're going to print, yes, apple is in the fruits list. Okay? So if we want to know whether an item exists in a list, then we can use in. Okay? And it's going to return a boolean, which is true or false. Okay? Since we're done with our second section, I'm going to come back and ask you guys if there are any questions. Okay? I'm going to assume that everything is okay, and I will move on to the second or the third section of lists. Okay, so yeah, there are a lot of sections for lists, but we're going to go through all of them one by one, okay? So let's say we wanted to, oh yeah, earlier I told you guys that in Python, we can change the items in a list. And that's what makes a list sort of unique in Python. We can change the items in a list, we can change its order, we can change how many elements there are, and so on. And we're going to learn how to do that. So let's say we wanted to change a specific element to another element. So in this example, we have a list and it has apple, banana, and cherry. But here, we're looking at the element, the item with index 1 in the list, and we want to change it to black currant. And if we do this, we're replacing banana with black currant. So if we print this, instead of seeing apple, banana, and cherry in the console, we're going to see apple, blackcurrant, and cherry. Okay, so this replaced banana with blackcurrant. Next, we can also do the same exact thing, which is replacing by using a range of indexes, which we just learned about. So we can change, let's say, since we have 1 to 3, we're going to go from index 1 all the way to 3, except for the last one, so banana to cherry, and we want to change it to blackcurrant and watermelon. And that's what this line does. So for this example again, instead of saying in the console apple, banana, cherry, orange, kiwi, mango, we're instead going to see apple, blackcurrant, watermelon, orange, kiwi, and mango, because this line replaced banana and cherry with blackcurrant and watermelon. Okay. Move from that. Okay. So we're going to move on to how to add items into lists. So we just talked about how to replace and change items in lists, but the way to insert items or add them is by, and this notation is sort of new, but we want to do the name of the list, period or dot, and then insert the index where we want to insert our new element or new item, and the item that we actually want to add into the list. So let's say, oh yeah, and if we print this, we're going to see that the watermelon is going to go in the index 2. So it's going to go right here in between banana and cherry. So in the end, we see that there's apple, banana, watermelon, and cherry. And of course, watermelon now has an index of 2 because that's where we inserted it. Let's say we called our list fruits and we wanted to add watermelon in between apple and banana. So that would mean that watermelon has to go in the index 1, right? So we would do fruits dot insert 1, or let's say we wanted to insert cherry, cherry into, or let's actually do a different one, kiwi. Let's say we wanted to insert kiwi into index 1, then we just say 1 and then kiwi. If we run this code, we're going to see apple, kiwi, banana, and cherry. Okay, because Oh, sorry, fruits. That's because here we inserted kiwi into the index of 1. That's the end of our third section. It was a pretty quick one because it's a pretty easy one. But does anyone have any questions for this one, this section? Okay, so I'm seeing several no's. So I'm gonna keep going. Okay. This is our fourth section, and now we're gonna talk about how to add items. Okay, so earlier in the previous section, we talked about how to change items. Now we're gonna start adding items to our list. And the way to do that is by using the append method. Okay, and notice how when we're starting to change, add, or remove items from our list, we're starting to use a different notation. Okay, we're using dot append instead of append this list and then whatever. Okay, so now we're starting to see some new notation where we have to use a dot. Okay, so let's say, oh, and append means to add to the end of the list. Okay, so let's say we have a list and it includes apple, banana, and cherry, and we wanted to add orange to the end of the list. In that case, we say the name of the list, period, append, and then whatever new item that we want to add to the end of the list. And if we print the list at the end, we're going to see apple, banana, cherry, and orange. So if we try this, we're going to see that indeed orange has been added to the list because we appended it. Okay, we just went over how to insert items, so I'm just going to skip that, or I'll just review it. Again, we're trying to insert a new item, orange, so that it has index 1. So when we print the new list, we're going to see apple and then orange because now it has index 1, and then the rest are going to be pushed back 1 index. So it's going to be apple, orange, banana, and then cherry. So let's just take a look. And as you can see, apple, orange, banana, and cherry. Okay? So we went over insert, extend. Okay? Let's say you have two lists and you want to sort of combine them in a way, or add another list to the end of another list. In that case, we want to use the dot extend method, okay? And it uses the same notation or syntax as the previous method, which was insert or append. Basically, we say the name of the list that we want to append another list with. Then we say dot extend, and then inside the parentheses, we put in the name of the list that we want to extend our original list with. So in the end, if we extend this list with tropical, we're going to see apple, banana, cherry, and then since we extended it with tropical, we're going to see mango, pineapple, and then papaya. Except they're all going to be in one same list. So let's see this for ourselves. And as you can see, we have apple, banana, cherry, and then we extended mango, pineapple, and papaya. Okay, all in one same list. Okay, we did not learn about this yet, so we're just going to skip over that. Does anyone have any questions about this section? We finished the fourth section. Okay, so to explain extend again, extend is where now we're trying to combine sort of two lists together. Okay, so earlier we were like adding new items, but this time we're adding a whole list to the end. Okay, so in this example, we have a list with apple, banana, and cherry. We have another list with mango, pineapple, and papaya. In the third line, we're saying this list extend tropical. And what this does is we're going to take this first list, and then we're going to take the second list, and then put this second list at the back of the first list, and then extend the first list. So in the end, we're going to have apple, banana, cherry, mango, pineapple, papaya in one whole list, in the same list, because we sort of combine them right here. Does that make sense? Okay, perfect. We're now going to talk about how to remove items. And of course, since we're still changing things about our list, we're going to use the same notation. Okay? So if we want to remove a specific element from our list, then we can just say the item that we want to the item that we want to remove from our list. Okay, so that list dot remove banana, and our new list is now going to be apple and cherry only because we now got rid of banana. Uh, let's say we wanted to use an index this time because sometimes we don't know what's in our list and we only know the index of what we want to get rid of. In that case, we can just say this list dot pop 1. And what pop 1 is going to do is it's going to get rid of whatever item is in the index 1. Okay, so these two basically did the same thing, right? Remove banana and pop 1. But the difference is that for remove, we actually knew the name of the item that we wanted to remove. But for pop, we use the index of the item that we want to remove. Okay? So that's sort of the difference between the two. And we have another method for changing our list, and that's the dot clear method. And basically, what this clear method is going to do is it's basically going to clear the whole list. So there's going to be nothing inside. Okay? So what we're going to see in the console if we print this new list after we clear it is we're only going to see two brackets because there's nothing inside. So let's just see what I'm talking about. Yeah, so since we cleared our list, we have nothing inside. So apple, banana, and cherry are gone. And if we print that, we're only going to see the square brackets that were on the outside of our list. Okay, so that's the fifth section of about lists. Anyone have any questions? Okay, I'm just going to assume that there are no questions. Now we're going to talk about, we're going to start using what we learned before from Sean, which is the for loop. And now we're going to talk about how we can use for loops, the concept of for loops, and lists together. Basically, and we kind of saw this in earlier examples, we can loop through a list of items, okay, using the for loop. So for example, let's say we did like 4x in this list. And what this is going to do is it's going to loop through each element of the list. So at first, x is going to be the string apple. In the next loop, it's going to be x is going to be the string banana. And then in the next loop, it's going to be the string cherry. Okay, so if we run this code, we're going to see apple, banana, and cherry all on separate lines. Right here. Okay. This is a little more complicated. We can also use a while loop, which Sean also told us about, to loop through a list. But in my opinion, I think using a for loop to loop through a list is much easier. As you can see, we're writing a lot less lines, a lot fewer lines, and it's much simpler than this, even though they do exactly the same thing. Okay? So when we're trying to loop through a list, I would suggest using a for loop most of the time. Okay? Next, this is not necessary. So yeah, that's simply how to loop through a list. So does anyone have any questions about looping through lists? Loop through index number. Yeah, this is kind of unnecessarily complicated, so I'm just not going to go through it. But if you want me to go through it, I will. So I didn't explain it earlier because I just think that it's much better to just do it this way. But we can also do it this way. And basically, this here, so if you remember the range function, is going to give us a set of numbers that we can loop through. And in the range function, we see that the parameter is the length of the list. And in this case, the length of the list is 3. So basically, this is going to be the range of 3, right? So it's going to be for I in the range of 3, print this list, and then the index, or like the element that is at the index I. Okay, so basically these do the same exact thing, but this one is a lot less complicated. So we can even see it. They do the same exact thing, right? So does that kind of make sense? Okay, I will section, or actually, I think the next section is a little unnecessary for the purpose of this class, so I'm going to skip over that, and we're going to talk about sorting lists. And here again, we're changing the contents inside of our list, so we're still going to use the dot sort notation. Okay, so we're still using the period. And basically, let's say we have a list here, and let's say we want to sort it alphabetically. So in this case, we have a lot of strings here, and it's a lot of work sometimes to list our strings alphabetically. But if we use dot sort, the computer can do it for us. So in the end, it would be banana, and I think kiwi, and then mango, orange, and then pineapple. So let's look at this. So yeah, banana, kiwi, mango, orange, and pineapple. And as you can see, the first letter of each word are all in alphabetical order. So all of these strings were sorted in alphabetical order. But let's say we have a list of numbers that we want to sort, okay, from least to greatest. In that case, we can use the same exact method, dot sort, and it would be 23, 50, 65, 82, 100. See? So first, they were out of order, but after using dot sort, we see that the computer was able to sort or organize our numbers in order of least to greatest, right? So it's a pretty useful method. But let's say we wanted to sort it in the opposite direction. So let's say we wanted to go from Z to A instead of doing it from A to Z. In that case, we would do the same exact thing, but instead, in between the parentheses, we want to say reverse equals true. And what that's going to do is it's going to do the exact opposite of dot sort. So now it's going to be pineapple, orange, mango, kiwi, and then banana. So it's going to go in the opposite direction. Same thing for integers. If we say reverse equals true inside the parentheses, then we can it's going to sort our list into 100, 82, 65, 50, and then 23. Okay, right here. Let's not get into this. I guess I'll talk about this. So, but what if, let's say, some strings had started with a lowercase letter, and some strings started with an uppercase letter. In that case, the capital letters all are sorted towards the end. So, in this case, the lowercase letters take I forgot what the word is, but it takes precedence over the capital letters. So they are sorted before them. So let's see how that works. Oh yeah, I meant the opposite way. So capital letters are sorted first and then the lowercase letters. Okay, so even though K is not before B or C, it's a capital letter. So it's going to be sorted before the lowercase letters. Okay? So we can do that. But maybe we want to sort it regardless of the capital letter. In that case, we can say key is equal to string dot lower. And what that's going to do is it's going to change the way we sort this list, so that it doesn't matter if it starts with a capital letter or a lowercase letter. They're all going to be considered the same. So we're going to, like earlier, we're going to just sort it into the usual alphabetical order. Okay? And of course, oh yeah, the reverse method is basically the sort method, but like earlier, we do reverse equals true. This is basically the same thing. Okay? Does anyone have any questions for sorting lists? So we have one request to repeat about the case insensitive sort. Okay, so I will do that. Okay. So, in the previous examples, before this example, most of the times, they were all lowercase letters, right? The words started with lowercase letters. But that's not always true, right? Sometimes words can start with capital letters. And in that case, uh, by default, Python sorts, or these capital letters, take precedence over the lowercase letters. So they, no matter what, they are sorted before the lowercase letters, and then the lowercase letter starting words are sorted. So if we sorted this, we would see kiwi, orange, banana, and then cherry. And the reason why is because kiwi, when we're doing just dot sort and there are capital letters, only the capital letters, only words that start with a capital letter are sorted. And then the words with lowercase letters are sorted. So they're sorted separately, kind of. Okay? So we see that even though the letter K does not come before B and C, it comes before the capital letter O. So it comes before orange. Does that make sense, Manuel? Okay. Moving on to the next section, we have copying lists. Yeah, I guess I'll go over this. So earlier I talked about how the list constructor can create a list for us. Well, here it kind of comes in handy. So let's say we wanted to create like a duplicate of a list. So we wanted to create the same exact looking list. There are two ways that we can do that. The first is to do my list, so create another list variable, and then say the name of the list that we want to copy, and then dot copy parentheses. What that's going to do is now my list is also going to be equal to apple, banana, and cherry. Okay, because it's a copy of this list. The second way uses the list constructor that I talked about earlier. Here, instead of using the dot copy, we can just do list, use the list constructor, and then put in the name of the list that we want to copy. That's going to create like a clone or a duplicate of the list that we want to copy. So these two do exactly the same thing, but using different code. Yeah, so does anyone have any questions for the copy? No? Okay. Okay, so earlier we talked about how to append a list. And to append a list, we used the dot append method, right? So we wrote the name of the list, and then we did dot append and whatever new element that we wanted to add at the end. Or we also used the dot extend method, right? Where we extended a list by combining it with another list. Well, here we can do the same exact thing, but instead of using like a method like dot append or dot extend, we can just use the plus sign. So what this does is it creates a new list called list 3, and then it combines list 1, which is this, and list 2, which is this, together. So if we print it, we get A, B, C, and then 1, 2, and 3 from list 2. Okay? Yeah. That's another way of extending or appending a list. We all went over that. And now we're going to do some list exercises before we finish or wrap up today's lesson. So we have 8 exercises. So if you guys have an answer that you think is correct, please put them in the chat. Preferably the question and answer, or actually put it in any chat that you want, as long as you actually give an answer. So, okay, so we want to print the second item in the fruits list. So we want to print banana. What would we put in this box to print the second element? Print fruits 1. So I'm going to put that answer in, see if it's correct. That's correct. The reason why that's correct is because if we do the name of the list and then we write the index of the second item, which is 1 in this case, then we would get the second item of the list. So next exercise, change the value from apple to kiwi in the fruits list. So we want to change the first element into kiwi instead of apple. So how would we do that? And hint, it uses the same concept as the previous exercise. Does anyone have any answers or any guesses that you would like to try? Nice. That's exactly how you would do it. So, um, fruits, 0, and then kiwi. Perfect. Use the append method to add orange to the fruits list. So how would we add orange to the back of the list, to the end? So we have fruits dot append orange. I think that's correct as well. Let's see if it is. Perfect. Use the insert method this time to add lemon as the second item in the fruits list. Okay, so we want to use the insert method, but we also want to make sure that it's, when we add it, it's the second element of the fruits list. Okay, so no, we're not adding it to the end, we're now adding it in between apple and banana. So how would we do that? Very nice. Fruits dot insert one. Yeah. Let's see if that's correct. Perfect. Next exercise, use the remove method to remove banana from the fruits list. Okay? So if you remember, the remove method doesn't use an integer. Very nice. Fruits dot remove banana. Perfect. Next one, use negative indexing to print the last item in the list. Okay? So remember, this doesn't start with 0, and we have to use a negative index number. So what would we have to put in the box? Perfect. Fruits, -1. Next one, use a range of indexes to print the third, fourth, and fifth item in the list. This is kind of tricky, so be careful of the numbers that you're putting. So we want cherry, orange, and kiwi. So what numbers would we have to put in the list? Okay, 2 to 5. Perfect. Next one, use the correct syntax to print the number of items in the list. So try to remember what method that we used to find the number of items or how long the list is. Perfect. Land fruits. Very good. Very nice. Yeah. So that's all the exercises for lists. We weren't able to go over tuples and sets, but we will make sure to do that in our next class. Uh, So, does anyone have any last questions about lists or anything before we finish up today's lesson? No? Okay, well, if that's the case, you guys are free to leave, uh, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, everyone.